Hello, my name is John Schwandt, Professor of Classical Languages at New St. Andrews College, and I direct the Institute of Biblical Greek at www.biblicalgreek.org. In this video, I will discuss how declensions work. Basically, I'll define them as well as cases, set up a way for you to understand the entire case structure for all nouns and adjectives in the Greek language. Hope you enjoy it.
The case system in Greek is notoriously difficult, and that's not to mention how to learn to properly accent and anticipate accents of various third declension forms. There seems to be an endless amount of paradigms and forms to memorize. You can take a look at the Morphology of Biblical Greek by William Mounce. It's an entire book on all the different forms that you can have in Greek. I have found that it is easiest and most consistent to cut with the grain of the language and simply memorize one set of case endings, and then learn how various noun stems combine with that single set of endings. Not only does this system allow me to generate an intuition for spoken Greek endings, it also helps me anticipate how new vocabulary will decline and how to understand words in different dialects. And it also enables me to anticipate how accents can change in different cases. The purpose of this video is to lay the groundwork for a single set of endings for all nouns and adjectives. I will follow it up with specific examples of how different noun stems will work with the single case ending pattern. Let's start with the definition of case. Cases are the different spellings that we add on to words to mark their relationship to other words. For example, you may think that I, me, and my are different words. They are in one sense, in that they are different spellings. They have different case endings or case spellings, but in terms of reference, they all are referencing the same person, me, the speaker. So really, they're all the same word with different case spellings to mark these different relationships. The spelling I is used to identify that this word is the subject of another word, like a verb or something. The spelling of this word with me, me, is used to identify that this word is the object of some other word, like a verb, he sees me, or a preposition, from me. My, is the spelling used to identify ownership of another word, my book. But notice all of these forms, I, me, and my, they refer to the same person, me. They just have different relationships to other words, so we change the spelling. We see this most clearly with our prepositions.
The only problem with our English system is that there really isn't a pattern for all of our different case endings for our pronouns. The case endings for some of our pronouns or nouns could be nothing for the nominative or accusative, an apostrophe S for possession. And then for the first person, I, me, and my, as we just discussed. Then for the third person feminine, she, her, her. Masculine, he, him, his. Plural, they, them, their. I don't really see a particular pattern between all of these. I guess there is a relationship between she and he and him and them, but overall, it's pretty confusing. The Greek system is far more consistent than English, especially when we consider all of our weird plural forms like oxen and geese and feet. This chart shows us that we have one set of endings for singular, sigma for the nominative singular, epsilon sigma for the plural of that, nu for the accusative, nu sigma for the plural. Notice we're just adding sigma or an epsilon to make it plural, very similar to English. And then the genitive forms both have an O, os for the singular and on for the plural. There is one exception to this paradigm here. The nominative plural for nouns that have vocalic stems will be a little different, but it will be different in a very consistent way, which I will show you quite soon. The important thing to notice here is that Greek has one set of endings for all of its nouns and adjectives. One set of endings for the whole language. If you view it that way, rather than learning a bunch of different paradigms, it makes it possible to get a degree of fluency and be able to converse in it. You also have the ability to understand different dialects and changes over time. And then you also can infer the endings for words that you've never seen before. There is another case in Greek that we don't have in English. There are 4 cases that one must memorize in Greek rather than the 3 that we have reviewed in English. The additional one is the dative, and that shows indirect object. There is also the vocative case, which is used for direct address, but since it generally has the same forms as the nominative, I think it is most helpful simply to learn these 4 case endings. I'm sure that those of you who have studied Greek before have noticed that my chart looks a little different than many other charts in that it goes nominative, then accusative, then genitive and dative. This is the older, more traditional way of presenting cases, and I think it makes a lot more sense. The nominative and accusative have far more in common in terms of their usage than the genitive and dative, and they have far more in common in terms of their forms, especially when we look at neuter forms, right, where the nominative and accusatives are the same. We'll get into those later, but for now, you'll just have to bear with me and go with the more pedagogically helpful pattern of nominative, accusative, and then genitive and dative. And you'll notice that I have them with similar colors on this chart as well. Well, let's take a look at a few examples of how these case endings, nominative and accusative, can show the relationships, the grammatical relationships between words. Nominative words will be the subject of the verb, and accusatives will be the object. So an example of a singular subject and object, o anthropos echi ton eukon. There you can tell just by the ending, anthropos, the sigma there, that that word is the subject, and the ones with the nasal ending, the nu, ton eukon, is the object. The man has the house, ton eukon. And it just so happens that the sound of the accusative of the object has that nasal sound, just like in English, him, them, he has them, he has ton eukon. Let's look at another example. Uvoes vadisusi is ton agoron. We can tell that uvoes is our subject because of the ending, s, and we can tell it's plural, just like in English. Oxen. If we wanted to make a word that ended with an S plural, we would add an ES, buses, voes. You can also see the object, ton agoron, the field. This time, it's an object of a preposition, is, which is into. So our sentence, uvoes, the oxen, vadisusi walk, is ton agoron, into the field. All cases except the nominative and the vocative can be used as the object of particular verbs and prepositions. Most verbs, though, do take the accusative for their object. This video series focuses on case spelling and accenting rather than meanings, so I will simply say that the genitive case shows possession as well as other relationships between nouns, which maps very well with the English preposition of. So, for example, is ek ton voon, vadisi is ton agron. Is, they're my subject. You can hear it by the sigma at the end. One, ek, from ton voon, one from the oxen. Or I could just say, is ton voon, one of the oxen. Vadisi walks is ton agron. Now there isn't a possessive relationship between one and oxen, but I just wanted to show that the various meanings between the genitive case, on, in Greek, and the English preposition of map about the same, because one of the oxen, of there, isn't showing possession either. Finally, the dative case can be used to show orientation or a certain respect to another noun, like an indirect object. Our example here, o agoros parechi siton to andri. Here, o agoros is my subject. I can tell by the sigma at the end. The field, parechi, provides. Which word is my object? Siton, the one with the nu, the nasal at the end. Siton, food. Now my iota is right there. To andri, to the man. For further explanation of case meanings, you'll have to find other videos or grammars. For right now, I'm just going to focus on how the spelling of these case endings interact with various noun stems and generate what we call declensions. Many people think that declension is a type or pattern of ending. Now, in Greek, we have 3 declensions, so many people think we have 3 sets of endings in Greek. But what I'm trying to argue here is that we have one set of endings, one set of forms that mark our different cases. And really, what marks different declensions are 3 different types of stems. And when our single set of case endings slide up next to our 3 different types of stems, they will generate or combine to form different spellings. And I really don't see how one can consistently argue that declensions are different sets of endings. Because if we look at all of the different spellings of endings, how they combine with different stems and subsets of stems, we end up with a lot of variation in our endings. Just look at the end of any textbook and you'll see paradigm after paradigm of noun endings. Now, if declensions are different sets of endings, all of these would have to be declensions. We would have 20 declensions in Greek. I think it's far easier, and really the way we talk about Greek as having 3 declensions is to look at our 3 different types of stems, and we're going to have subcategories within those 3 types of stems, and learn principles of euphony, how letters combine with each other. And then we can anticipate all of these variations of spellings and endings, and really only have to learn 3 types of stems and the effects of those stems. Now, as far as stems go, they can either end with a vowel, so that would be a vocalic form, or a consonant forms. Nouns and adjectives with vocalic stems will either have A-type vowels that we will call the first declension, or O-type vowels that we will call the second declension. It's too bad we don't call the first declension merely the A declension and the second declension merely the O declension. I think that'd be far more descriptive. The third declension is made up of all the different types of consonants that we have, and we do have a number of different types. We have labials, and they will combine with the various case endings in very similar ways. The same goes for dentals. They will combine with the endings in very similar ways to each other. The velars will combine with the endings in very similar ways compared with each other. The liquids, lambda and rho, and nasals, mu and nu, will do very similar things when followed by our case endings. The same goes for sibilants and our semivowels, iota and upsilon. I know many people think of iota and upsilon as vowels, but really they are semivowels like our Y in English. And the endings will look far more like they're following consonants than vowels, and that's why we group them under consonant forms. And so I know this looks like a lot of variation here, but in general, stems that end with a consonant will all have a similar look to them. So we have this kind of overarching general look that we call the third declension. And now we can look at it with a very fine optic and look at how the labials differ slightly to the dentals, or they have their various characteristics according to our principles of euphony. Once you understand how these different types of letters interact with each other, you really don't have a lot of paradigms to memorize. You simply just have to look at what 2 letters are standing up close next to each other and simply remember how they react to one another in very predictable ways. I hope you understand now the relationship between declension, which is really stem type, and ending, our single set of case endings. I have other videos that work through each of these types of letters and show you how they interact with the one set of case endings. I know that it seems like there's going to be an infinite amount of combinations, but there really aren't. You're going to have one set of vocalic forms that tend to work one way, and the consonant forms will cash out a different way. And then we will make slight modifications according to the type of stem letter. But those will be very predictable, and there aren't that many principles of euphony or principles of spelling that you have to learn to anticipate those slight modifications according to each stem letter type. Once you learn how the one set of case endings combine with our limited set of stem letters, you will be able to inflect the forms of any noun or adjective you come across in Greek. Please check out my other videos on this topic at my YouTube channel, which is Biblical Greek, or you can follow me for further postings on my Facebook page, facebook.com/IBG page. Thanks for watching.